Standing until the conclusion of the reading of the proclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, the proclamation. All persons having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh. Give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Queen.
Can I welcome you all here today and particularly acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley ACQC, Governor of New South Wales, and of course a former member of this court. Justice Williams was sworn in on the 15th of April 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. A formal welcoming ceremony was of course not possible at that time. Since that time, she has become a really well-liked and highly regarded member of the court. We are delighted to have this belated welcoming. Mr. Attorney.
May it please the Court. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Your Honour, Justice Williams, on behalf of our state and the Bar, it's my great pleasure to congratulate you belatedly on your appointment as a Justice of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. I acknowledge and pass on my congratulations to the members of your family here with us today, to your husband Scott, your children Sophie and Hamish, your parents Robin and Peter, and your brother Nathan. Welcome. Memories and anecdotes shared by your family, friends and colleagues paint a portrait of a diligent, meticulous, consummate professional, an independent thinker and a kind and generous human being. Growing up in Lindfield, Your Honour was an advanced reader from an early age. When Nathan was a baby in a bouncinette, you, still small yourself, would sit and read to him. Read being in inverted commas because you'd memorised all the stories and knew exactly when to turn the page. Reading was and still is a great love. You read anything and everything you could lay hands on. One of the earliest novels was E.B. White's Charlotte's Web. That classic tale about friendship, affection, protection and life and death resonated with you. Your Honour's always been musical. You learnt the trumpet and played in many high school musicals. You also taught yourself to play piano by ear on an old upright that had belonged to your great-grandmother. High school was at the selective North Sydney Girls. Here you were a diligent student and showed a natural ability in German. In Year 10, you went on a 3-month exchange to a little town called Geherden, just outside Hanover. You were one of 4 Australians doing the exchange program in Geherden at the time. Together you all improved the social lives of the young people in the town. So much so that the Goethe Institute, the organiser of these exchanges in Australia, suggested it might be the last time they put 4 young Australians in a small town together. One of these 4 was a dashing young man from Wahroonga. While he liked sauerkraut and pork knuckle, you were more partial to spätzle and rosti. But none of this mattered. He was, of course, Scott Kennedy, the man who became your husband. You studied German at university and have maintained your fluency. You've also kept up contact with your exchange partner and family. It's roughly 11:20 p.m. in Germany right now, so willkommen und guten Abend to your friends if they're tuning into the live stream. You remain connected to Germany, and for at least one period of time you were dreaming in German. It was a matter of some distress for you when those dreams suddenly stopped. One day around this time, your mother decided that a good mother-daughter outing would be to go to the city and visit the Supreme Court. Your mother and you watched a murder trial. This was to be formative, and your mother, in her wisdom, had seen that your natural calm, organised, measured and diligent nature would be a natural fit for the law. From this experience, you started researching and mapping your path. At the University of New South Wales, you undertook combined arts and law degrees. You edited the UNSW Law Journal. You also took part in mooting, winning competitions and travelling to New Zealand. While at university, you also worked as a waitress at a German restaurant at Campbell's Cove called Wolfie's Bar and Grill. Many here know the story I'm about to tell. It's a favourite of the Honourable Kevin Lindgren, AMQC. One evening at that bustling restaurant down by the harbour, while customers enjoyed their lager and schnitzel, one of the male staff behaved in an untoward manner with a female staff member. Your Honour took the matter in hand and quickly devised a solution. While the male staff member took a trip to the cool room, you closed the door and locked him in. He was allowed to come out on the condition that he'd never do such a thing again, and by all accounts, there was no further trouble. After graduating, you were an Associate of Justice Kevin Lindgren. He recalls Your Honour in particular as being cool, calm, collected and organised. From there, you practised in-house for an international transport company. This was valuable experience, but your Honour's sights were always set on the bar, and you were called to the bar in 2001. You worked on a number of long and demanding cases with now Justice Andrew Bell. Your Honour didn't shy away from raising issues, and your clear-thinking advice was valued. You were appointed Senior Counsel in 2016. I'm told you were encouraged to apply 2 or 3 years earlier and would have been a strong candidate. While many others would have thrown their hat in the ring, you held off in keeping with your careful, considered approach. For you, it wasn't about the accolade or status as much as making sure the time was right to take the responsibility. At 11 Wentworth, Your Honour worked on some high-profile and complex cases. You built your reputation primarily in commercial law and equity, as well as commissions of inquiry. You were an experienced advocate before ICAC, appearing at compulsory examinations and public inquiries on many occasions. In 2016, you appeared for the Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police in proceedings in the Supreme Court in which the plaintiff was suing the Commonwealth and the State of New South Wales for alleged breach of duty of care, trespass and malicious procurement of a search warrant. You represented ANZ and the Royal Commission into Misconduct in the banking, superannuation and financial services industry. You led counsel teams in the hearings relating to financial advice, lending to Indigenous customers and life insurance. You advised ASIC in relation to ongoing investigations concerning the conduct of financial services licensees and company directors. Your Honour represented the respondent in the Federal Court class action relating to alleged PFAS contamination at the RAAF base at Tyndall. In many cases, you defended clients facing considerable trouble or painted by the media as guilty. This, of course, is the test of our legal system. Defending such clients shows just how fair a legal system really is. It's also excellent training for the bench. Your Honour was a regular advisor to the Bar Council and appeared in professional disciplinary matters concerning barristers and solicitors. All this experience earned you a reputation as a very well-prepared advocate with an impressive courtroom presence. Your reputation as a cross-examiner was one of a methodical, careful, analytical approach and always in control of your materials. Your Honour is very much missed at 11 Wentworth. Had you not been called to the bench, you would have been chair of the floor this year, the first female chair. At 11 Wentworth, Your Honour was the go-to person for advice with a well-worn path to your chambers. Your Honour was on a professional conduct committee since 2010 and was a diligent and conscientious member of that committee. You gave your time generously to talks and seminars, and more recently for the New South Wales Bar Association's Open Day for female law students. Your Honour started on the bench just as COVID hit and no special dispensation was given. You dealt with complex and sometimes very old cases from day one. You're already a prodigious publisher of judgments. You've already established a reputation both on the bench and in chambers as a consummate professional. In the spirit of your early mentor, Justice Kevin Lindgren, and others who mentored you, Your Honour is always looking to mentor younger staff. They've been touched by how much you value their input and advice. Your focus, work ethic, and natural ability mean you're able to do justice in a relatively quick fashion, allowing time for your family and to travel, and these days you've taken up the piano again to decompress. Often some of the greatest lessons we learn are those we learn in our youngest years. Now, as you continue to embark on this new chapter in a glowing legal career, I've searched for words to encourage you further on that journey, conscious you've already started it. I come full circle and return to Charlotte's Web, as I urge you to never hurry and never worry, as you continue to provide your service to the law. In your Honour's life thus far, you've taken a careful, considered and confident approach in your decision-making. This will continue to serve you well on the bench. Your appointment is an acknowledgement of your skills, expertise and specialised knowledge that you've acquired throughout your service to the law and of the hard work, dedication and personal sacrifices you've made. Congratulations, belatedly, on your appointment, and I offer you the very best wishes for your career on the bench. May it please the Court.
Ms. Warner.
May it please the Court. I too acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this Court stands, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to other Indigenous people who are present or who may be watching. I come before the Court on behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales to offer congratulations and wish Your Honour well in your appointment to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. And mindful of the important role that your family has played in Your Honour's life, I would like to acknowledge your family members and friends who are joining us today and who are applauding your appointment. And in particular, I acknowledge your husband Scott and children Hamish and Sophie. And I must say, I'm really pleased to see another North Sydney Girls High, old girl. At Your Honour's farewell from 11 Wentworth Chambers, Your Honour was remembered as, quote, diplomatic yet effective, clever but humble, and an enabler of the right kind. Today, I'd like to reflect on how these three attributes made Your Honour the silk of choice for solicitors, the mentor of choice for junior counsel, and the candidate of choice for the highest bench in New South Wales. So, diplomatic yet effective. Your Honour's many achievements within the law are well known, as is your effectiveness in the courtroom. Your Honour's persuasive advocacy style was evident as a young law student competing in moots and has only developed over the following decades. After being admitted to the role of solicitors in February 1998 on Valentine's Day, no less, Your Honour would be called to the bar and go on to appear in many high-profile and high-consequence cases in commercial law and equity, as well as quite a few outings in front of ICAC. Your Honour is known to be very calm and measured, and you must have certainly needed that in your ICAC practice, where one has to expect the unexpected. One is never quite sure what's going to come out of the woodwork or the next phone tap. However, your colleagues believe that what truly distinguishes Your Honour are the cases that aren't listed on your CV. A barrister at 11 Wentworth remembers one such case. Your Honour was unwilling to sign off on a pleading until a whole lot more work had been done and some more facts shaken out of the client. Your Honour understood that this might jeopardise the brief, hardly a desirable outcome for a barrister running their own successful commercial practice, but according to your former colleague, at no point was that even a factor in your decision-making. Your Honour did go on to lose the brief, but not your commitment to doing things properly. Might I say that saying no to a client is one of the difficult things that we sometimes have to do. Your Honour's success over more than 2 decades has been built on that strong foundation of integrity and, in addition, diplomacy and tact, in particular in your dealings with junior counsel. Your Honour is known as having mastered the art of the cone of silence. Your colleagues know they can confide in you, or if need be, vent, and it will go no further. Your Honour is also known for treating everyone frankly and fairly, whether clients, solicitors, colleagues, opponents or judges. The second attribute mentioned was clever but humble. Your Honour possesses a formidable intellect, and your former colleagues are effusive in their praise for your deep understanding of legal matters. However, Your Honour has never been one to dispense with preparation or to wing it in the courtroom. Your Honour's humility is reflected in how diligently you prepare for each case and the amount of thought you put into each matter. In the words of one barrister, I have never met any silk that has approached a case with the same amount of rigour and diligence as Kate does. Your Honour's case notes are apparently the stuff of legend at 11 Wentworth. For some lawyers, case notes mean 1 or 2 pages of high-level thoughts, a bit like a one-pager for a university student preparing for exams. But for Your Honour, it was more likely to be a novel-sized document, 70 pages plus, setting out a clear chronology and including extracts from and references to all of the material in the brief. The reason that Your Honour's case notes reached such legendary status was that Your Honour would share them freely with fellow barristers who joined the brief. She had this incredible capacity to generate work that was just so useful for everyone, one said. On countless occasions, Your Honour would find yourself correcting an expert or challenging a witness, and their error was clearly evident with a quick reference to your detailed case notes. Your Honour was also remembered as the very best of mentors and as the most supportive of colleagues, or, in their own words, the right kind of enabler, someone who helps others to be successful. From sharing insights into commercial litigation to giving tips on managing a commercial practice, Your Honour has been, for many barristers and their lawyers, a phone a friend over the years. She was always able to offer wise and steady counsel, and you always had great comfort in trusting her opinion, said one. Your Honour has been lauded for your consistency, for doing the right thing and for doing it well day in and day out. Your Honour helped your colleagues to remain balanced and to take care of themselves as well as their clients. And Your Honour was never afraid to encourage junior counsel to speak up for themselves and to back their own approach. In reviewing your career, I am reminded of an observation made by Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AOQC, Governor of New South Wales. Her Excellency said, "You can be very, very good at this game without being aggressive. You just have to know when and how to stand your ground." Since taking silk in 2016, Your Honour has helped many junior counsel to stand their ground, modelling diplomacy, tact and strength. As one barrister put it, she will be a wonderful judge. She will listen. She won't have the need to demonstrate that she is the smartest person in the room. She will listen, and she will also make it very clear when she's heard enough. Another colleague has said, she will be a wonderful judge because in her daily life she is measured, self-contained and judicial, and I am sure you are honing those judicial skills on your teenagers. Before I conclude, and possibly because of the fact that I watched a bit of Brazen Hussies on iView last night, which is a documentary about the women's movement in the 60s and 70s, I would like to channel my inner second-wave feminist for a moment. Can I say how terrific it is that women at the bar are being recognised for their talent and outstanding ability in much greater numbers than ever before? May that recognition increase exponentially. In fact, it appears that many of those outstanding women are named Kate. For example, I have heard solicitors say, when considering who to brief, "Why don't we brief one of the Kates?" I have also heard one of the Kates laugh that she's been confused with one of the other Kates. So one Kate has gone to the bench, allowing the other Kates to consolidate their Kate power, and the bench has also benefited from some Kate power. It is terrific to see talented women from the bar and also from the ranks of solicitors appointed to our courts and tribunals because you are role models for those who follow. Your Honour will bring a wealth of knowledge, personal integrity and diligence to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. The people of New South Wales are privileged to be served by you in this role, and the solicitors of this state have every confidence that you will make an exceptional judicial officer of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. So on behalf of the solicitors of this state, congratulations, Your Honour. You will be a wonderful role model, as the court pleases.
Justice Williams.
Chief Justice, judges, Mr Attorney, Ms Warner, distinguished guests, family and friends. I too begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we gather this morning, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And what a wonderful gathering this is, particularly after the events of the past year. Thank you so very much for taking the time and doing the honour that you do to the court and to me by being here this morning. Thank you, Mr Attorney and Ms Warner, for your very kind words. I'm grateful to your informants for sharing with you all of my best qualities and keeping some of my other qualities to themselves. They have most certainly understated their own role in the progress of my career. No person comes to this point without an army of people having supported and encouraged them along the way. My army is magnificent and it has far too many members for me to thank them all individually today. But I do welcome the opportunity to publicly thank those who have been my key influences and supporters, both in my career and in my life. I'm deeply honoured by the presence here today of Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACQC, Governor of New South Wales. I believe that I'm a member of the first generation of women in the Australian legal profession who have been able to look up to and draw inspiration from other women in very senior roles in the profession. Her Excellency has always been a leading light amongst those senior women, as has the Honourable Patricia Bergen SC, former Chief Judge in Equity of this court, who also honours me by being here this morning. There is great truth in the saying that it's difficult to be what you cannot see. My peers and I were able to see what we wanted to be. The Honourable Margaret Stone AO is another extraordinary woman who had an enormous influence on me at the very start of my career. Working for Margaret as a law student and then as a junior solicitor, I began to learn the art of independent critical thinking, starting from first principles and taking nothing as given. I also learned that adrenaline and coffee can sustain that critical thinking for up to 48 hours non-stop when absolutely necessary. I learned the value of speaking less but saying more. And I saw how, if you were at the top of your game and spoke your opinion plainly, a room full of people jostling for dominance would quieten down to hear what you had to say. Because when Margaret spoke, they couldn't afford not to listen, and they knew it. Perhaps most importantly, I learned that maintaining a sense of humour is even more sustaining in any stressful situation than coffee and adrenaline. I have fond memories of Margaret moving my admission as a lawyer in this very courtroom just over 23 years ago on Valentine's Day, as Ms Warner reminded me, and of then attending her swearing-in ceremony on her appointment as a judge of the Federal Court just a few years later. I'm delighted that Margaret is able to be here today, together with two of the friends I first met working with Team Margaret at Freehills all those years ago, Danielle Kelly and Sinead Eastman. I'm also touched that Margaret's daughter, Elizabeth Stone, who has always been at the centre of that small friendship circle, is here this morning. In these friendships, as in my friendships with Kate Richardson and Erin Kennedy, two wonderful women I first met at the bar, the good times and bad are shared, the long periods of radio silence due to work demands and other commitments are tolerated, and all hands are on deck in times of crisis. I treasure them. Most young lawyers would give anything to have someone like Margaret Stone take them under her wing, but my lucky cards dealt me another wonderful mentor, the Honourable Kevin Lindgren, AM-QC. Kevin is also a great one for speaking less and saying more. His intellectual brilliance, extraordinary work ethic and unfailing courtesy and fairness had already won him a reputation as an outstanding judge by the time I started work as his associate little more than a year after his appointment to the Federal Court. Outside the courtroom, Kevin went out of his way to create a happy environment in chambers. He was generous enough to share his thinking with me in the process of writing judgments, and kind and patient enough to allow me into aspects of that work. Thinking back to Kevin's approach to the work of a judge has given me much to aspire to as I find my feet in this new role. Kevin was, of course, instrumental in my being offered a readership on the 11th floor Wentworth Chambers when I first came to the bar. That opened opportunities to work with many leaders of the bar, those opportunities, of course, being brokered by the legendary Paul Daly OAM. My practice simply would not have taken off as it did without those opportunities and without the generous support and encouragement of the very busy and talented barristers on the 11th floor. Throughout the whole of my time at the bar, the one constant thing was that I loved the place that I came to work and the people amongst whom I worked each day. I shared many war stories and tales of my opponent's tactics with my neighbours and good friends Peter Braham, Ian Pike and Perry Hertzfeld, although their stories always seemed more colourful than mine. The occasional bout of mother guilt was shared and halved with Vanessa Whittaker. I would call on Kelly Rees, now Justice Rees, or Amy Munro when I needed an island of calm in the midst of a storm, and Justice Rees could always be relied on to put the fire back in my belly before I had to re-enter that storm. Many of life's dilemmas were solved over a cup of tea with Phil Greenwood, and if I needed a quick chat with a friend to get me through a late-night working marathon, I would invariably find the light on in the room on the other side of the floor that was then occupied by Justice Bell. I will always feel privileged to have been a member of the 11th floor, and I thank all of the floor members for their friendship over the years, and I thank the wonderful staff, Anne Dayton, Melinda Morris, Mandy Allen and Zach Reimer, for keeping the wheels turning for all of us. I was also very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with many wonderful leaders and in more recent years juniors at the New South Wales Bar and on other floors and from the Melbourne Bar, and I thank all of them for their outstanding work and their companionship through many interesting and challenging matters. Many who were my friends at the bar are amongst my new colleagues on the court. I've been quite simply overwhelmed by the generosity with which all of the judges have welcomed me and offered advice drawn from their own experience of the transition to the bench. I remain deeply grateful for their support, and I look forward to serving on the court with them. I'm honoured to have been given the opportunity to do so, and I'm conscious of the responsibilities that travel with that honour. I'm touched that many judges who are unable to sit on the bench this morning due to social distancing requirements have taken seats in the public gallery of the courtroom for this ceremony. I also wish to thank my staff, Jasmine Geary, Lachlan McIntyre and Isabella Farmy, and until recently, Harry Simons. It is genuinely a pleasure to spend each working day with these intelligent, insightful and considerate young people. It never ceases to amaze me how they calmly keep everything in order, regardless of what might have unfolded in court or behind the scenes on any given day. Finally, but most importantly, I wish to thank my family. I owe them everything. My brother Nathan is quite simply the best brother in the world, and he and I agree that we have the best parents in the world. Our parents were raised surrounded by love, joy, integrity and resilience, but they could only dream of the opportunities of the kind that they later provided for Nathan and I. In their early 20s, they made what must have been a difficult and daunting decision to move to Sydney, leaving their established lives in northern New South Wales. And Nathan and I are in awe of the life that they built for us here from scratch. It's really quite difficult to capture the essence of our parents in words. So the best I think I can do is to share with you that Nathan and I, by some source of authority that remains a mystery, bestowed on Mum the postnominals QFE on the occasion of her birthday a few years ago. It stands for Queen of Everything. And Dad is undoubtedly the King of Everything. And I'm so very happy that the King and Queen of Everything are able to be here today, together with Nathan, his lovely wife Danielle, and their two beautiful daughters. As you've already heard from the attorney, when I was not quite 16 years old, Mum and Dad sent me to Germany on a student exchange program. Only after becoming a parent myself did I truly appreciate what courage it must have taken for them to send me to an unknown family on the other side of the world for 3 months. As you've also heard, that courage changed the course of my life because that unknown family remain our very close friends today. And I arrived back home not only with a greater appreciation of German language and history, but with something else that I suspect Mum and Dad hadn't quite bargained on when they bid me farewell. A boyfriend who had been one of my fellow exchange students and who began arriving at their home with what must have seemed like alarming frequency in a roaring bright red VW Beetle that you could hear coming from several blocks away. Scott and I married almost 10 years to the day after we first met on our flight to Germany, and he has been my best friend and my partner for the whole of my adult life. It was Scott who encouraged me to go to the bar and supported me financially while I established my practice. He continued to support me at every stage, bearing with amazing good grace and good humour the vicissitudes of being married to a barrister, even whilst rising to the demands and challenges of his own very busy and successful career, and coping with the joyful but chaotic years in which we were raising 2 young children. When it all seemed too much, Scott was the calm voice of reason, encouraging me to carry on. In raising our children, we had the constant love and support of both of our parents and extended families, for which we're both very thankful. I'm delighted that Scott's parents, David and Diane, are able to be here today together with my own family. We also had Karen, who came to work with us when we first started our family and has been with us ever since. Karen has played many roles over the years, but most importantly, she is a unique combination of best friend and extra parent to our children and a friend to us as well, and we are very grateful to her. Our children are now emerging young adults. They have brought us more joy than I can begin to describe and have challenged us in ways that have undoubtedly made us better people. They've created many hilarious moments that form the fabric of our futures in years to come. We are immensely proud of both of them. When my youngest niece was told about my appointment, she wanted to know the name of the television show on which I would be appearing as a judge. I know it isn't Dancing with the Stars, darling, but I've always thought these ceremonies were a pretty good show, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you all again, each and every one of you, for being here this morning.
Court will now adjourn.
All stand. This honourable court is now adjourned. God save the Queen.